Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Align, Engage, Fulfilled. In our last episode, we talked about story building, which was how to craft a narrative. But a story is just words until someone brings it to life. Now, if you go to a Disney theme park, for example, the castle is a story, but the person who hands you a balloon, that's the experience. Now, this brings a massive tension in the modern workplace. We want employees to deliver a performance, to be on stage, but we also increasingly want them to bring their whole authentic self to work. So, how do you reconcile those two things? How do you ask someone to play a role without asking them to hide who they are? My guest today is an expert on the show. He's known globally as the ex Disney guy. John Formica is a former Disney leader who managed their top luxury resorts at Walt Disney World, and he helped develop the Disney Institute's customer loyalty program. He travels all over the world teaching businesses from plumbers to banks how to create a Disney like culture. Before we dive in, I want to set two ground rules for our conversation today to really anchor us in this conversation. The first one is that employees are the first customer. We're going to operate under the premise that everything we know and everything that we say about customer experience applies equally, if not more, to the employee experience. The second thing is that there are two sides of the desk. Now, John travels the world teaching leaders how to build culture, but today I also want to talk to the individuals listening about how they can apply these principles to their own careers. So we're going to look at this from both sides. And I know it's a lofty goal, but we're going to try. Mr. John Formica, the ex Disney guy himself, welcome to the show and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Clarence, how are you? It's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here today to be on this podcast. I'm
Thank
excited,
you.
sharing all kinds of information and doing whatever I can to serve you and your wonderful audience.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. And honestly, the pleasure is mine. I have to really confess, I'm a massive Disney fan. I grew up on all of the films, especially the classic ones. I'm a Disney Plus subscriber. And last year alone, I went to the parks with my family about 8 times between Florida and
Oh,
California. So I have absolutely fully drunk the Kool Aid. But the purpose of me sharing that is not to just tell you that I'm a big fan because you're the ex Disney guy. I'm sharing that because I really want the listeners to understand that our conversation today is rooted in my experience as somebody who believes in the magic that Disney creates every day from the perspective of a consumer, from the audience. Because as I mentioned today, our goal with the conversation is to really pull back the curtain and understand the nuances behind putting on the magic, the show, to see how we can replicate these behaviors, this mindset, and really apply it to our own businesses and our careers. So, John, a little over 2 years ago, you were the keynote speaker at the Small Business Expo here in San Diego. And to kick off your talk, you asked if anybody had a birthday coming up, and I raised my hand. I said, my birthday is tomorrow. And because I was the closest to the day of the event, I won a signed copy of your book, Making the Customer Experience Magical Now. Now, I've had this book on my shelf for about 2 years since that. And as I was rereading it in preparation for this episode, there was one quote that really stopped me cold, dead in my tracks. You wrote, and I quote, understanding the true purpose of engaging your employees' hearts, hiring the right people, having a commitment to details, and creating a fun environment where your employees have an opportunity to be successful will all help create a magical experience for your customers. And I think
that's
that
it.
is just so powerful. And I think it perfectly sums up what leaders have to understand about their role in this whole process.
That's right. Absolutely. And it's wish there was a magic wand we could all wave and create an incredible culture. And often I get asked many
Right.
times, how does Disney do it? What's the secret behind it? And there's a lot of work and a lot of involvement involved, but you're right. It really starts with culture. It starts with the employee experience. It starts with getting the right people. It talks about how you have to affirm, constantly reaffirm your core values and what you stand for and the behaviors that are associated with those core values. And leaders' job is to just keep that alive and keep talking about it and keep it out in the forefront and demonstrate it and
Yeah.
recognize and appreciate those who do and all of those things. And when you, like you said, you put that all together, I think your chances are better. Doesn't mean that's the perfect answer, but your chances are better to create the
Right.
culture that sticks. And that's the goal I think of any business owner is we want it to stick. We want it to just be on autopilot and then we can take
Right.
care of our customers, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate that you talk about people being at the center of it and that you really use this word of the heart because it really does serve as a central thesis for this show, for this podcast and really of my consulting work and it will serve as the premise of our conversation today. This notion that you can't have the magic without the heart. So, to really start us off, John, I want to go backwards from customer loyalty to customer experience. You helped Disney in your experience, you helped Disney develop their customer loyalty program, but today we're facing a crisis of employee loyalty. Leaders are claiming that loyalty is dead. And then on the other hand, employees are claiming that loyalty doesn't pay. So, my question to you is if Disney ran a regular business today, how would they apply their customer loyalty secrets to fix employee loyalty? Is it even possible to build that kind of die-hard commitment in a fractional portfolio career gig economy kind of world?
The answer is yes. It's not easy, but yes, it can be done, particularly, in smaller businesses. Obviously, Disney's huge, 75,000 employees at Walt Disney World Resort just in Orlando alone. But, most small businesses obviously don't have that many people. But it begins
Mm,
with, when you go back to the heart and it goes back to um, creating an environment where people want to do it, not feel like they have to do it. And
mm,
what businesses sometimes don't understand, I look at sometimes I'll ask business owners, uh, you know, define or describe your culture. What is it, right? If I walked in to your business, what would I say as a customer or a new employee? What would I say? Could I feel it? Could I sense it? Could I see it? Could I smell it? Could I taste it? What is that culture like? And what I find is that today's model, and again, I get it. I understand. I understand a lot of people's pain and with employees engaged in quiet quitting and all that. But it seems like in some businesses and organizations, the model goes like this. Business owners or companies will pay employees just enough money so they don't quit. And then
mm,
employees do just enough work to not get fired. Now, there's
right.
something wrong with that
Mm,
model, right? There is something wrong with
absolutely.
that model. And that's because many businesses focus on trying to change the individual and not realizing it's the environment that is the challenge, or the environment might even be the
Mm,
problem, right? I use this example. Your audience, those that listen, will know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I'll explain it to you. But if you've ever had a fish tank, a real fish tank, whether it's salt water, fresh water, it doesn't make a difference. But if you have a fish tank, a typical challenge occurs in everybody's fish tank is that your fish all of a sudden begin to have these black dots on it, like little dots,
mm.
somewhere around the fins or head, or it could be anywhere. And the term is called ick. I don't know if it stands for something. I don't know if it's scientific. I just know it's called ick. Right? What a name, because it's icky to look at, I guess. So every fish owner has to go down to their pet supply store, or if they don't have it on hand, and go to their fish store, wherever they go, and I got to tell the person, my fish have these dots, and they will say you got ick, and they will give you this little powder substance, and what you do is you pour it in the water. Now, what it does, it affects the environment that will help cure the ick from the fish. What it doesn't do is you don't take it and
Mm,
rub it on the fish to get rid of the ick. You have to
right.
you have to clean the
Mm,
environment so the fish can survive, right? Healthy and nourished. Well, if you think of your company that way,
mm,
many business owners try to fix people, or they they think they can change people. They think they could hire people and then they'll conform to our culture once they start and
right.
they see what everybody else does, and they see what my expectations are, and they see how demanding the job is, and they see how important our customers are, or how attention to detail we need in building the product, whatever it might be, not realizing that it's not about people, it's about the environment. And one of the things that Disney does so well is they create an environment where people want to do it, not feel like they have to do it, right? And you
Mm,
know, what when I do workshops, a lot of times I will ask business owners to raise their hand if they feel like a babysitter, right? And 90% of the audience raise their hand, right? It happens all the time.
yeah.
You know, why do you feel like a babysitter? Because I can't get my employees to do this, and nobody wants to work hard anymore. This younger generation, right? And they're focusing on the people. Well, as as I shared, and as you quoted me, maybe you have the wrong people. Maybe you're the people that don't really want
Yeah.
to be there. Maybe you hired people that just want to make enough money so they don't get fired, or just want to do enough work
Right.
so they don't get fired, right? I don't want them on my team, right? I want people that are
Yeah.
flourishing. I want people that are going to take initiative. I want people to grow. I want people to feel like they're owners, right? And that's where we have to create that employee experience, which is just as important as the guest and customer experience. So I want
Yeah.
people to think about, what does your environment look like, and how did you create this environment, and what does your environment stand for? And if you don't know, the easiest way to do it is to go back to your core values, or take a look at your core values. Now, some businesses don't have any core values, and that's probably part of the problem. But even if you have core values, are they verbs? Do people believe in them? Do people demonstrate those core values? Do you talk about it at every staff meeting? Do you recognize and appreciate people when they actually act out those core values? And that's the foundation of your culture. And Disney's one of
Mm,
those companies that has, their core values, and we talk about it and look at it and discuss it and recognize and reward people every single day. There's no assuming that everybody knows it because they were, when we hired them, that we told them during orientation that those were the core values. No, it is all the time. And if they don't
mm.
if they don't believe in those core values, they'll get pressure from their coworkers, but also get pressure from the environment of leadership that says, "Are you not happy? Do you not believe in this anymore? Because if you don't, then that's okay. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but doesn't mean your heart's not in it. If your heart's not in it, you can't create magical experiences at Disney." Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Well, so I love that you really talked about the environment of it all. And I think that one of the things that people on the employee side of the table often misunderstand is their role in creating that environment, right? So when we talk about core values and living the core values, or when we talk about leadership as an employee, at least, we often look at it as a very one sided thing. There's this
Mhm.
expectation that leadership has to be done to us, or that core values has to be exemplified to us. There isn't often this realization that we also have to exhibit the same behaviors, we also have to live the same values, we also have to lead up. There's that missed notion, missed
Mhm.
aspect of it all. What I've always really been fascinated about with Disney is that when it comes to their employees, they famously call every employee a cast member. Now, on one hand, I know that this gives them purpose, right? So when we talk about the janitor, the custodian, for example, they're not just cleaning up, they're keeping the scene perfect. On the other hand, playing a role mm, can feel exhausting. It implies that you have to be on and performing all the time. So I can understand where there's some frustration on the employee's part of that. But there is some psychology behind this all.
Mhm.
How does changing the vocabulary around something as, what you call an employee, how does that change the level of engagement that you get from your employees? Does simply calling an employee a cast member elevate them to feel like an insider, or does it just add pressure for them to perform?
Yeah, great question. And Disney uses that terminology to make sure people realize when you get hired to perform. And it starts with the hiring process to make sure you understand why you are being considered a candidate to work at Disney, right? Because it's not for everybody. And it doesn't mean that if it's not a good fit for you that you're not a successful person or you're not any good. That has nothing to do with it. It's telling the people why they are hired. And Walt set, you know, the standard from the beginning. He said, you're going to do lots of different tasks and job responsibilities, but we're hiring you to make people happy, right? And if you don't want to make people
Mm,
happy,
hmm.
then Disney's not for you, right? And
Right.
so somebody, the average person might say, well, I like making people happy, so I would love to work for Disney. Okay, that's a good start, but do you realize that what you have to do in order to keep people happy? It doesn't just come and smile. There's a lot of work behind the curtain to make sure it
Mm,
is a good show. And when we talked about, you know, the Disney as a cast member, and there's on stage and backstage, right? And
yeah.
and it's showtime, and that everything matters because everything you do when you are on stage is an intentional first impression and direct reflection of the company, the business, the product, everything you do. It explains the why is important. See, I've
Right.
been with companies
Right.
and I've worked with coaching clients of mine who think that if they tell their employee what the expectations are, that the employee is automatically going to understand why it's important, right? Because wouldn't the
Right.
employees know that if they're not smiling and happy, that the customers aren't going to be happy and they're not going to give us money? You got to go way beyond that, right? Uh, you know,
Mm, right.
Employees aren't stupid. They understand it's a business. They understand you're trying to make money. But in many cases, employee thinks the only reason why I'm doing this is so the owner can make money. But if you
Right.
can hire people who want to do it, love doing it, enjoy doing it, and in the hiring practice, you've proven to me, Clarence, that you've actually done it, right? Because I might ask you a question. Do you like people? Do you like making people happy? And Clarence is going to say, oh, yeah. Some businesses are saying you're hired. Well, I don't really know if you're fooling me or not, right? So
Right.
it starts with the hiring process, and it is significant investment of time to find out if the person's the right fit for the role that they're going to play. Now, many business owners, I'm
Right.
sure those that are people that are watching here, you don't have the luxury of just firing everybody and starting all over, right? You got a business to run, you got an organization to run. But when you start bringing in people, we need to bring in people who really want to be there. And it's not about the job, it's about the identity of the purpose of why I want to work there. Right. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people want to work at Disney
Mm,
because it's great to put on your resume and you get free tickets into the parks. But those people get weeded out really fast during the interview process, right? Because
right.
I will
Right.
hound you, I will interrogate you. I'm gonna just make sure that you are the right fit. And for those that
Right.
already have people working for them, when was the last time you actually told people what their role is and why their role is so important in the show? And yes, you might be a
Mm,
custodial person and your job is to clean up, but do they know why it's important to clean up? Do they understand in the big picture,
mm,
cleanliness is important to the customer? Do they know why we can't just sweep over, that we have to get the nooks and the crannies and the corners because attention to detail matters? And do they know why that when we walk by and we see that they actually did that, that we as a leader are so appreciative of them because they get it, and we're so excited that that you understood details matter, and thank you. Do we do that, or do we just assume, well, that's their job, they ought to get, that's what they get paid for? Mm. Boy, that changes the whole
Right.
dynamics, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate, so I actually want to lean into this word of performance because I think that when we're talking about the world of work, the word performance has such a negative connotation to it, right? And this is why I wanted to bring it up in this conversation because the whole idea behind Disney's model is this putting on a performance, putting on a show. But I think what matters, and too much of the points that you just made, is the back end of it, the what's happening behind the curtain has to match what's happening on the other side of the curtain. There has to be not just this pretend expectation, and then the experience on the employee side doesn't match. And I think that's critical when it comes to, again, this notion of putting on a performance. If everything is aligned in terms of, again, like you mentioned, your identity, your purpose, they understand the why behind what they're doing, and they understand the role that they're playing in the whole of it all, that's when I think performance becomes much less of a negative experience and becomes a much more aligned experience. So I
Mhm.
want to take that and build on a concept that we explored last season with Mansi Shukla and Natalie Jackson, when we talked about this relationship between employee experience and customer experience. What we discussed was the theory that employee experience is the ceiling for customer experience. You can't have happy customers if you have miserable employees. Disney is obviously famous for CX, for customer experience, but to really get there, I'm assuming they had to master employee experience. So, to pull back more of that curtain a little bit, how does Disney treat its internal customers or the cast differently than most other typical corporations? Is their internal hospitality as rigorous as the external hospitality?
Yeah, you said, you hit the nail on the head when you said what goes on backstage is what really goes on stage, right? How do you create this environment where people feel like they're special, they feel appreciated, they feel valued, they feel like you have invested in me, they
Mm,
feel that you listen to me, they feel all of those things. That's where leadership is so valuably important in the customer experience. And that is because how do leaders take care of their employees? Walt said, treat your employees like they make a difference, and they will. Yeah, right? But
mm,
I
yep,
can only coach you, Clarence. If you don't want to make a difference, then I can't do anything to get you to do it. I can't make you do it. I can't make you smile, right?
right.
So again, it goes back to, did I have the right people? All right. So let's just say we've been in all of us have been in organizations where we are all fired up, we're excited. I can't wait to work for this company. And then what happens? We get thrown into the water, right? It's called on the job training. And
Right.
the orientation program, we we get there and they go, "Oh, are you starting today? Oh, I didn't. I thought you were starting next week. Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. Let's figure out who's going to train with you today, and I got to get you a name badge, and you're going to have to wait till next week till you get your login, and
Uh-huh.
what message does that send a new employee, right? So again, it's an
Right.
investment in everything, from not only the investment of the time that takes that the hire slow and make sure we get the right people, but now when we bring them on board, and how do we begin to tell people that when you're hired, Clarence, y- we're serious about this, and
Yeah.
this is a great partnership, and I need you more than anything in order to create a great experience, and you're valuable to me. And let me demonstrate this.
Mm,
And Clarence, before you go start your training in the restaurant, in the hotel, in the fantasy land, you're going to go through 2 days of traditions training which you're going to learn everything you've ever dreamed about learning about Walt, about the history of the company, about where we came from. You're going to learn about how the magic is created. You're going to actually see it. We're gonna go into the
Mm,
parks and we're gonna have you see it. We're gonna go talk to employees and ask them why they've been working for Disney for 25 years. And you're gonna not take it from me, you're gonna take it from them, right? And you're gonna feel like at the end of those 2 days, you're gonna feel, even though you're only been 2 days, you're gonna feel a part of family. You're gonna
mm.
feel like
Wow.
I can't wait to start my job. Like, I am so
Yeah.
pumped up.
Right.
When can I start? Right? Whereas,
Yeah.
what does most companies do when they do orientation or onboarding? They give you a 100-page manual to read or go
Manual,
over or
employee handbook.
sign, or you watch a few videos, and they might take you on a tour. And next thing you know, here's your manager. And the manager's like,
Right.
okay, I got to get you trained as fast as possible because we're so short staffed, right? And boom.
Mm,
I mean, Disney sacrifices these 2 days, and Clarence, everybody's in this session. It's not just housekeepers. It's not just back of the house people. You might be in a room with executives and housekeepers and waiters and floor operators and engineers. Everybody goes to this together because we're one company, one big business.
yeah.
And so it sets the tone, and then the training, and then the investment of learning. It's not just, you got 2 days to learn, get out there, and it's you start to realize that Disney's different, and I'm pretty
Right.
lucky to be a part of this. Now, what do I need to do on my part to demonstrate that Disney made the right choice in hiring me, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a company that
Wow.
will is known for hiring anybody, if you can breathe, we'll hire you. Guess who shows up at those interviews? Anybody, right?
Those people. Right. Anybody.
But if I know that, boy, I'm pretty privileged to get a job here, that I am somebody, and I want to prove it. And that's where the proof is in the performance, right? And then I get
Mm,
to go out there and demonstrate it. Culture is like a banana, you know, it'll get ripe real fast and then it gets old, right? And
yeah.
think about the
Oh, wow.
cast
Yeah.
members at Disney. You were there. I'm sure there was a lot of people there, right? And if you went in the
Mhm.
summertime, it was hot. And it's over, and every day there's no, well, we only have 1,000 people today in the parks. No, there's 1 million people every day.
Right.
So you have to, what we called at Disney, you have to play hard, but you also have to have fun, right? You have to have fun, but you're going to
Yeah.
work really, really hard. You got to, but we're going to help you. We're going to recognize, we're going to reward you, we're going to appreciate you. And if we don't, then it's on us, right? And
Yeah.
leadership at Disney is a lot of dialogue, a lot of communication between the leadership and their staff. At Disney, my managers had to have a one-on-one with every single employee that reported to them once a month. A one-on-one. We're not talking performance
Mm,
reviews. We're just talking about something that would take 15 minutes maybe, but I got to know you. We got
mhm.
to talk about feedback. We got to talk
Right.
about, what are we doing well? What can we do better? Give me some ideas that we can do something, or recognize, Clarence, I saw you the other day. You were awesome with that guest, right? It's that time where we just focused on you, right? And my wife, I give you a perfect example. She has one-on-ones with her boss. He spends 90% of the time talking about himself
Yeah.
or talking
Yep.
about
Sounds
the
right.
business, right? And my wife
Mhm.
is like, I have a whole list of things I want to talk to him about, my career, about, and we never get to that, right? How does that make her feel? Doesn't make her feel important,
Mm,
right? Now, my wife
right.
is struggling with that every day, and she loves what she does and she's really good at it. But I need to motivate her every day just to keep her excited, because she gets deflated than anybody else would at
Yeah.
the same time. So,
Yeah. Well, so much valuable information there. And I think what's really important to understand there is that these expectations, these standards, that Disney has set for the kind of people that they want to hire isn't about like elitism. It's not about trying to like be or to find the elite of the elite. Because one of the things that you mentioned in your book is that there's this old Disney maxim of we hire for attitude and we train for skill. And on top of that, you also mentioned in your book that the secret behind all of this is purpose. And you were just talking about this a few minutes ago about how every new hire goes through that traditions training where they learn the purpose, which is simply
Mhm.
to make people happy. And you talked about how there's different people in the room, whether you're in the custodial team, you're in the back office finance, there are different people in this room going through the same training because you are a whole organization. My challenge and my question to you is, and this is really to help the audience understand more of the nuance behind this, but that sounds great, right? Traditions training with people from different sides of the organization sounds great if you want to make people happy. And I know you mentioned this earlier that there has to be a want behind it. But what if I'm a brilliant accountant who just loves numbers and not necessarily people? And this question touches on alignment. If my personal purpose doesn't align in making people happy, can I still succeed within that Disney culture?
Yes, because if you're in accounting and you love numbers, then you're in the right role, right? But what if I took Clarence, who's in accounting, and I put him in the front of customers to greet people, right? Now you're out of your element. You're not in the right role. And how many of us business owners put people in wrong roles and they don't understand? But I also then have to tell you that, like from a Disney perspective, we have to make people happy. Well, it doesn't just pertain to guests. Clarence, do you realize that when your numbers are accurate, Clarence, when you can provide the information so we can now have this data to help create a better experience or to be more efficient or to save on costs or to
Mm,
allow that money to be used elsewhere. Clarence, do you realize how important your job is to us? Now, you just think you're playing with numbers and
mm,
you're doing reports every day. Let me tell you, without you, we're nothing, right? If I demonstrate that to you on a daily basis, Clarence is excited about knowing why. Because
right.
Clarence might
Yes,
say, "Well,
absolutely.
who do I make happy? I don't make my boss. I make my boss happy, but as long as I keep making him happy or her happy, I guess I'm doing okay." No, Clarence, there's a bigger
Right.
picture of this,
Mm,
right? And from a Disney perspective, it is so big that it takes all of these departments understanding that one purpose of why is to make people happy. And if you don't make your fellow teammates happy, then you're not going to fit in Disney either. Even though you might be great with numbers, you might have a accounting degree
mm,
at MIT. It doesn't make a difference if you can't understand that your role is to make people happy and to do whatever you can to be a good teammate is just as
mm.
important as accurate numbers. It won't work.
That is so beautifully said. And I think that that's important for the listeners to understand that it isn't just the responsibility of the leader. And correct me if I'm wrong from your perspective, John, but it isn't, again, just the responsibility of the leader to help you understand that. You also have to do some of the work to
Mhm.
understand that about your own role in the whole of the organization.
Right. And again, if you know why you do it and you want to do it because that's what makes you tick. I look at myself. I grew up so fortunate that I had two loving parents that were servers. They would let anybody in, they would help anybody out, they would help a
Mm,
neighbor, they would help a real they just were servers, right? And so I was able to understand that at an early age that it's better to give than receive, right? As the old biblical term is. And
mm,
and so in the world of hospitality, in the world of serving others, it was easy for me to understand that, right? And yet my wife
right.
didn't grow up in that environment. And so she's asking me, like, the other day we went for a walk in our neighborhood and she goes, "Wow, looks like somebody cleaned up that drain, the road, the drain that goes from the stormwater." I go, "Yeah, that was me. I was out there the other day and I cleaned that up." And she's like, "Why did you do that?" I'm a server. I want to help the neighborhood. Maybe my neighbor is too old to do it. I don't, whatever the reason, but I took upon myself to do it. Why? because it's there.
Mm,
It's in there. So Disney,
mm.
did real well when they hired me because I drank the Kool-Aid really fast, right? I drank the Kool-Aid before they had to even give it to me. Um,
Right.
but but I but it was but when we have people that believe in something wholeheartedly, that's when it becomes a little easier. It didn't say the job is going to be easier, but it means that I feel that I'm at least doing whatever I can towards that why, towards that purpose, towards that cause. And again, where leaders come in is, do they notice? Do they care? Do they appreciate? Do they make me feel important? If not, then I don't know if anybody even notices. Does anybody care? What am I doing? Does it matter? And that becomes
Right.
demotivating, right? And we never want to,
Mm,
we always want to figure out what is demotivating our staff rather than how to motivate them, because we can't motivate them. Everybody motivates themselves, right? Like you said perfectly.
right.
I got to want to go out there and perform, right? When no one's looking, I got to go out there and perform, right? And when it's 150 degrees in Orlando, Florida, I got to go out there and perform. When a person asks me 100 times where the bathroom is, I got to perform, right? When someone asks me what
Right.
time is the 3 o'clock parade, I can't sit there and say, "Oh gosh, what an idiot," right? I got to go.
Mm,
I know why they're asking me that question, right? And they're not asking me
right.
about time. They're asking me about what is the parade all about, and I get an opportunity to do that. All of those things happen when my heart's in it, right?
Yeah. Well, again, let's talk about the heart and the purpose because when you talk about motivation, whether it's you as a leader motivating an employee or you as an employee motivating yourself, it comes down to that knowledge, that awareness of that purpose. And again, it goes back to the heart of it all. One of the things that you said in your book is that purpose is more important than the job. And I think that that creates such a powerful anchor. But let's take this in the context of a small business owner, for example, who is listening to us right now that maybe runs a plumbing company. Their purpose isn't necessarily magic, it's maybe unclogging drains. How do you help a business like that define a purpose that actually engages the heart so that their employees aren't just feeling like they're working for a paycheck?
Yeah, it's interesting because uh, what you just shared is part of marketing, as just as important marketing customers as it does marketing employees, right? So from
Yes.
a customer perspective, if I'm a plumber and I told the customer, "Oh, I have the number one technology and we've been in business for 50 years and all our plumbers are certified and trained and we'll fix we can fix that clog of yours." Any plumber can do that, right? But if I say,
Right.
what's the
Right.
benefit of hiring me? Because could you imagine never having a clogged drain again? Because I'm going to fix it right the first time, and I'm going to teach you how
Mm,
to keep your drain cleaned. All right now, I'm educating you. I'm marketing the value of
mm,
hiring me as your plumber. Well, the same thing goes as leadership. We want to make sure that the employees understand the value, the benefits of what their performance is doing. So again, I'm not just hiring you to clean drains. I'm hiring you to
right.
create experiences for the customer. I'm hiring you to build a relationship for the customer so they'll keep calling us next time, next time, and next time.
Right.
And they're going to tell all their friends how great we are. Right. That's why I'm hiring you. And I love your
Right.
personality.
Mm,
So I want you to not just go in there and say, "Hi, I'm here to fix your drain." It's, "Hi, oh, you have a lovely home. How long you've lived here? Oh, wow. Well, oh, I noticed you have little stuff.
mm,
Do you have kids? How old are the kids? Are they in school?" It's getting to know their story to build that relationship. That's what I'm hiring you for. The drain is the outcome that we're going to get paid to do, right? Which is important,
mm,
but it's the relationship that we're building that's why I'm hiring you, Clarence. And that's,
mm.
I think a lot of businesses, small business owners particularly, they miss that step. They
Yeah.
assume that the employee knows that's what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
It's like the TV show. What is it? The boss. The What's the one that the boss
Undercover
is
boss?
hiding? Yeah, yeah. The boss finds out. Oh my gosh, is that really what goes on? Yeah,
Mhm.
right? Well, leaders need to know that all the time, not wait for some TV show to do that. We need to be engaged. And when was the last time a manager went on a plumbing run with the plumber to see all the good
Mm.
things that you do and to notice you, right? And appreciate what you do. And to took the time to give you some more pointers that to make you better or offer you an incentive to upsell so that you can make more money for your family. And let me, where does that happen? Never, never. Right.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
business owners, again, if you take good care of your people, like you said earlier, they'll take care of your customers and guests.
I want to take this into the context of today and what's happening in the job market, because I think it's important for us to acknowledge the challenges that we face as job seekers and as leaders in the current environment, and everything that we've talked about so far in terms of the environment, the purpose, the heart, everything that comes into creating this magical experience, regardless of what industry, what company, what role you're playing. When we again go back to this notion of performance in today's context, we see that there's this massive disdain for performing for a paycheck, right? And we I spend a lot of time on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, and all these platforms, primarily to really understand what people are talking about, what people are saying about their experience. And millions of people are going onto TikTok alone, for example, to
Mhm,
talk about how tired they are of faking it. They feel like they are masking and hiding their true selves to please the boss, to do the job well. And so we want to be authentic. And when we look at Disney, like as we've mentioned, where they look at really the consistency in it all. But my question to you, John, is there a difference between professional performance, which is doing the job well, and
mhm,
masking and hiding who you are? How do we ask employees today to put on that performance without asking them to lose their soul?
mhm. Again, it's it's putting people in the right role, right? And I'll give you a good example. We all know the company Chick-fil-A, right? And Chick-fil-A does phenomenal job. Everybody says it's the best place. They make more money in 6 days than McDonald's does in 7 days, and everybody else, right? And so I get a lot, and I'm sure you have it too, and I'm sure it's all over TikTok and social media where you can't find employees anymore. Nobody wants to work. And this younger generation of, all they want is money and they want, instant gratification and all this stuff. And then I say, have you been to a Chick-fil-A lately? And they go, oh, yeah, it's great. I go, well, how come Chick-fil-A has the same snotty nose, pimple face, 16-year-old from the high school that you just told me doesn't want to work, right?
Right,
How come
right.
they only have the good ones and McDonald's and Burger King and everybody else has ones that aren't like that, right? Because they're out there.
Mm,
There are
yes.
people that want to perform, that want to take pride in what they do, want to be excellent. I mean, you look at sports. You have all these kids in sports. Some of them are really good and determined, that they want to play in professional one day. They're driven. Now, not everybody. My son wasn't driven to play baseball professionally. He just wanted to have fun, right? And guess what? His skill
Mm,
level showed it. He had fun. He was okay. He was average. But there were guys on his team that were really, really good. Put in the time, put in the effort. Those if I'm starting a baseball team, I want them on my team, right? Because
mm,
we're gonna win a lot of games, right? So we have to make sure that from an individual perspective, are we marketing and looking for the right people to coincide with our core values of who we want working for us so that they're in the right role? Because if they're
mm,
not in the right role, then it's that square peg in the round hole again. Employers have to understand is that sometimes I ask them, instead of trying to find great people, what are you doing to be a great company that everybody wants to work for?
mm.
Right?
Yeah.
What can we do to get better? No, we're not going to be perfect. Disney's not perfect. There are many days when I worked at
Mm,
Disney that I was frustrated. There were many times my employees were very frustrated, right? And the demands and having to stay late and have to work on weekends and overtime because it was a big event and they'd rather be home with their family and there were times those sacrifices had to be made, but they understood that
mm,
that's what it takes in order to be Disney. And it's a privilege and an honor to work for Disney. Not saying they're the best company in the world to ever work for, but it's an honor.
right.
Do business owners have that same mentality towards their own business? Do they tell their employees, before we hire them, that Clarence, if you get chosen to work for me, it's an honor because I don't just hire anybody.
Mm,
So, do we truly believe in that, or am I just hiring a warm body? And because
mm,
you'll know that you
yeah,
just hire warm bodies,
right.
and then that
You'll
just
know, yeah,
that
right.
puts into the same thing. Yep.
Well, I mean, you mentioned in your book that the Mouse House was the hardest job you ever had because expectations were so high, but it's also the best job that you've ever had. And I think that when it comes to business leaders, they get so paralyzed by this notion or this idea that creating a Disney-like culture means perfection. And to your point, it isn't about that, right? Because we all understand that humans aren't perfect. We all have bad days. And the goal isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about a commitment to the show, even when things go wrong, because
Mhm.
you know your purpose behind the role that you play.
It's really about, do you care, right? Do you care? Right?
Yes.
I could screw up, but if you care that we screwed up and you care about fixing it or doing something about it or really apologetic or be sincere and admit that, you know what, we screwed up. I'm really sorry. That's not your intent. You bought that product, you invested in that service, and we screwed up. I need to make it better. When I see a company do that, I become more loyal to them than the perfect
Mm,
company, right? Because I know that they
right.
care and they're trying. And like you said, their intent is not to screw up on purpose. But how many
Right.
companies do we know that screw up and they say, well, nobody's perfect?
How do you create a culture that strives for both magic and also allows for that humanity, that imperfection? So, as a business leader listening to this right now, if I'm paralyzed by the thought of having to balance between that perfection and that humanity, how do I create a culture that allows for both?
I love when you say you want people to be original, authentic, right? I don't want to create a group of robots working for me. That's what AI is going to do someday, right? I want to
Right.
create that human connection and personality. And we all like to do business with people we like. We all like to hang out with people we like. Well, how do we like them? Well, we got to
Mm,
know them, right? We realize that we have things in common. We realize that you like something and I like something. You realize that you're not perfect and I'm not perfect, right? Um, and you're struggling with the same things that we have. I think empathy is a big plays a big part of that. Putting yourself in other people's shoes and realizing that we're not all perfect and maybe they didn't understand or maybe I didn't make myself clear or whatever it is and so we need to demonstrate a little bit more empathy to each other. Some leaders
mm,
and owners think they're perfect and they're not allowed to make mistakes, and if they make mistakes, it's a sign of weakness. You know, I think being humble sometimes is a good virtue. And I
right.
remember asking my staff
Yes.
all the time, "What are we doing around here that's stupid?" Right? And my team would go, "Do you want to know?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they would tell me, and I'd go, "I don't know why we're doing it. Let's not do that anymore." Or
Right.
why are we even doing that? Oh, because the last manager said we need to do it. Well, just what? Don't do that anymore, right? And so, or maybe they felt I was micromanaging them, or maybe they
Mm,
realized I wasn't paying enough attention to what they do, or I wasn't giving them more opportunities to be empowered, or whatever it might be. And that's on me. And I appreciate
mm,
that honesty and feedback so that I could get better because my job is to serve you as my employee. I need to serve you because as Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want, right? And so that's what we have to do as leaders: help them get what they want.
Right.
And not everybody wants the same thing, right? Some people want a career.
Yeah.
Some people just want financial stability. Okay. Some people want their ideas to be heard. Some people want to grow. Some people want to just come in and do their, whatever it is, because their family's more important. Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong or good or bad. But it's a leader's job to kind of figure out
Right.
what it is, so that now I can nurture that and help you with
Yeah.
that, so that you feel important.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And what comes to mind, and to really echo what you just said right there, is something that I explored in the episode prior to this one with another John Elbing. We talked about the difference between storytelling and story building. And I think that this notion of story building when it comes to your role as a leader really speaks to a different approach in terms of not being one-sided, not being top down, but really making it a collective experience and understanding that there are many different characters involved in this story that you're creating and that you need to bring them onto the process, to the journey to really move forward in stepwise. And so I think that's a really critical thing for leaders who are listening right now to understand is maybe that's what it takes. Maybe if you're feeling paralyzed in trying to navigate this balance between trying to create this perfect culture or even the right culture and trying to allow for humanity, approach it not from a storytelling standpoint, but from a story building standpoint. And
Mhm.
remember that again, it is a collective experience and you need to bring other characters along with you as you're building that story. So
That's
I
right.
appreciate
And
what you
who
just
and who's
shared there because it definitely echoes
and
that notion from John Elding last episode.
that's right. And who has a better story than our employee, right? Our employees have great
Right.
stories,
Yes.
and that's that feedback. Like I shared what culture is, right? Culture is creating those core values and building on that. Well, what culture is not is putting in ping pong tables and having brownies and free coffee. That's not culture, right? That those are good
Mhm.
benefits. Nothing wrong with that. I love that. But that's not going to change my culture. Yet Google does it and they have a great culture, so I ought to do
Mhm.
that. Well, you're not Google, right?
Right.
And so you're not Facebook. So it's understanding to the employees and tell them and being humble. I want us to enjoy what we do. I know we're going to work really hard. I know our customers are very demanding. I know we have to, the attention to detail is insane, but I need your help. What kind of environment, what kind of culture would you like to be a part of? Because my job as an owner, as a manager, I'm trying
Mm.
to do that. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in one day. Of course, it's a journey, but I need your feedback on helping us build our story, right? Tell our story. And I think that's valuably important when we get our staff and our employees involved and be humble in realizing that we don't have all the answers. And not every employee is going to give you great feedback and not every employee is going to participate, but you're going to still get um, great value in that exercise.
Right. Yeah, 1000%. Okay, John, as we get closer to the end of the episode here, there is something that I want to get your take on because, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, we're in a really difficult job market right now, right? Probably one of the worst we've had in a really long time. And we have a lot of listeners who are in that seat in that situation right now where they're having trouble finding a job or they've identified a need, a desire to make a career change, a career transition, to pursue that purpose, to really align with what they want and to align with themselves. So I want to pivot a little bit to that individual career context
Mhm.
and look at the relationship between experience and value. We all know that Disney is, for most of us, expensive. Families even save for many years just to be able to go, but millions of people pay it every day. I know I do. Even when it stretches their budget, because the experience exceeds the price. And I think that there's a career lesson to be learned here because when we talk about our careers, we often talk about acting your wage. But if I Disneyfy my career, if I become the person who anticipates needs, creates ease, and delivers magic to my team and to my boss, then I'm creating that premium experience, right? So, does
Mhm.
providing that magical experience to my employer actually give me leverage to command a higher salary? Or does that further feed the problem of performance where I'm just working harder and masking more for the same paycheck?
Yeah. That's a outstanding way of looking at things because if you're thinking about changing a career or you're just graduating from college and now you're competing in the world for all those jobs, people say things like, "Well, I'm out of college. I don't have a lot of experience, right? So how do I, how can I get that job if I don't have a lot of experience?" Don't look at it as experience. Look at it as what value you can bring me as a company. And again, that's your own core values that line up for the employer's value. So one of the first things I would tell you
Mm,
to do is go research the company to find out what their core values are and talk about how your personal core values are theirs. And let me give you examples of my core values and what I can bring to your company, right? All of a sudden, like if you do that,
mm,
which I imagine nobody does, if you do that, you're already setting yourself apart from everybody else, right? And so
right. Yeah.
think about if you have a business, you're marketing the benefits of why you should hire me, the plumber, why you should buy this shampoo, why you need to go to this auto service repair shop. Your marketing is about demonstrating the benefits, not the amenities, but what are the benefits that we will help you, right? Because it's what it's in it. What's in it for me, right? The customer. What's in it for me? You gotta bring that connection. Well, from a career perspective, the employer is saying, "What's in it for me? Why should I hire you?" Right? Oh, because
Mm,
I'm dependable. Um, I like people. I'm really good with attention to detail. Those are amenities.
right.
They're
Yeah.
features. I want to
Mm-hmm.
know what the benefits. So now bring it into a story where you can demonstrate how attention to detail, what you did at church with your softball team, in
Mm,
school on a project, or at another company, if you're going from company to company, what that did and how the company benefited, or the team benefited, or my boss benefited, or the customer benefited. When I start
right.
talking in that language, now you become valuable to me and you're not a commodity.
Right.
Because if you're a
Right.
commodity, I'm going to pay you, Clarence, $20 an hour and that's it. You want to make
Mm,
$21 an hour? Go somewhere else. I'm just paying $20 an hour. Right.
mm, mm,
Whereas if you bring value,
right.
I'm going, maybe I ought to pay Clarence $22 an hour because if I don't pay him, he's worth so much more value to the company. We got to differentiate
Mm,
ourselves by doing things
yeah.
differently. And I think sometimes we don't want to brag. I don't want you to brag either, but I want you to share
Right.
what value what you did brought
Yeah.
to someone else, not to you, but what it brought to someone else. Does that make sense?
Right. Communicate your impact. Yes, absolutely. I think that's great advice for anybody who's listening. Even if you're not freshly out of college, if you are somebody who is a seasoned expert but have not done an effective job of communicating your value outside of your job, I think that's great advice for you to take. So we talked about the individual side of the employee, but let's flip it and bring it down to earth for our business leaders. My listeners might be running a 10-person team with zero budget. Can you give us a concrete example of a Disney level engagement strategy that a small business could implement tomorrow for $0?
Yeah. They can do this exercise, right? All they need to do is, I love doing this exercise during my training. And it's an exercise we did at Disney, and anybody can do this, right? Walt said, we don't treat them like customers. We want to treat them like guests, right? So we want
Mm,
our staff to treat them like a guest. Why? Because when you think of the word guest, it's different than a customer, right? Guests is family, people that are special to us, people that are important to us, right? So we do this exercise. I tell them, get out a piece of paper, work in groups, right? so they can have all 10 people do this or break them up in two groups or whatever it is. And I want you to ask this question in the exercise. I want you to brainstorm together all the things you would do if you had a guest, family member, relative that's going to spend a weekend at your house, right? They're going to
Mm.
come visit you and stay at your house. I want you to write down all the things you're going to do prior to their arrival, right?
Mm.
And, things like clean, grocery shopping, uh, you know, make sure the backyard looks good. Maybe plant some flowers on the deck, or you're gonna do all this stuff. So they write all that down, and in the exercise we talk about why. Why do you want your house
Mm.
clean? Now your house is probably clean, but if you have guests staying with you, you're really gonna make sure it's clean. Why? Well, good first impression.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Don't we want to have a good first impression at our business? So, what does the front windows look like? What does the entrance lobby look like? What does the parking lot look like? So now we're getting them to think like guests, right? And the same thing with,
Yeah.
we're going to go out and get some food. Well, you're going to get food that you like, or you're going to find out what they like. Well, I want to find out what they like, right? Because grandma, what do you want to eat for breakfast? You want to have waffles? You want to have English muffins? You want to have bagels? You want to have cereal? What do you want? Right? You're going to go out and get that for grandma because she's staying with you because you want her to feel
Mm.
special. You want her to feel comfortable, right?
Right.
She's your guest. So you go through each one of those and you talk about why that's important. Why would you do that in your own home? And how does it apply to our business? Okay. And
Mm.
it's a lot of fun exercise and you get all kinds of quirky answers, and that's kind of fun. Then there's the second part of the question, the exercise. And the next part of the exercise is write down all the things you would not do while they're a guest in your home.
Mm.
And then you realize what a bad show looks like, right? Because you want to be a
Right.
good show. That's before they arrive. You want to get sure everything looks good. But how you behave and act while they're here, that's the experience, isn't it? That's just as important as the day they arrive, right? And so we want to make sure that we're available. We're not on our phones. We're not going to ignore grandma, right? We're not. Well, should we ignore our guests? Should we ignore our customers? Should our cell phone be more important than taking care of our customers on the floor, right? So we
Mm.
we start tying that all in. We talk about dressing. You're not going to walk around the house naked, right? Of course not. Well, you're going to make sure you look good when your guests arrive and while they're there. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're going to dress in suits and ties, but you're going to do that. You're going to not have a full blown out shouting match with your spouse or kids while grandma's visiting you. Why? Because that would make grandma feel uncomfortable. How many businesses have you
Right.
gone, Clarence, where you notice two employees moaning about their schedule, about their boss, about the working conditions, right?
Mhm.
Customers don't want to hear that. Grandma doesn't want to hear that, right? So it's a great exercise to bring it back to your business of why it's important and why the experience is so important because you're on stage, it's showtime, and how your employees play a role in that. Does that make sense? Kind of fun thing, doesn't cost any money. You can
Yeah.
do it. Anybody can do that.
I love that. I think that is such a powerful exercise. And I appreciate you sharing that because I think it goes back to that context and helping people understand and put themselves in the shoe of a business or a business leader, and to really take this to more of this down to earth level of, okay, it's not just about putting on a show, but it's really about creating that experience. And I think that's the best way I've heard so far of how to really bring it down to earth and put it in the context that people would easily understand. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that.
Do that exercise to a new hire during orientation so they know why they were hired, right? You were
Mm.
hired to treat them as a guest, not a customer, not a transaction, not a widget lover, right? These are people, right? And just like you would treat your family, that's how we want you to treat our customers, right? And so, but you can do
Yeah.
that, with your existing employees just as well as new hires as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, if you are listening to this right now, your assignment, your homework is to go and try that exercise. I'd love to hear what comes out of it. So please share that with us. Now, John, I want to ask you one final question. If you could wave a magic wand and change one behavior in leaders that kills engagement, what would it be?
It's demonstrating that you don't care. And there's
Hmm.
lots of ways of demonstrating that you do care, right? And so focus on those, and your employees will then realize that you do care. You're busy. You're an owner. You're a manager. You got a lot of stuff to do. You got a lot of things on your plate. Um, but take the time to demonstrate that you care. And caring could be empathy, caring could be appreciation,
Hmm.
caring could be just taking an employee to the side and saying, "You okay? You okay? Yeah, is everything all right at home,
Yeah.
school? Everything okay?" And they go, "Why? Yeah, why? I care about you. That's why you're just not yourself. You're okay and nothing's
Hmm.
wrong, but I care about you, right?" And when we start to do those things, I think that's where the emotion and it's remember it's not what you say and it's what you do. How do you make people feel,
Right.
right? It's show people that you
Hmm.
feel that you care and then demonstrate that you do care. You can't just say, "Well, I care about my employees," and then, you always beat me up when I do something wrong, but you never tell me that I did anything good, right? You never see me do anything good, right? It's we want to make sure that we can demonstrate things, and I think employees realize that it's not easy being a business owner. It's not easy being a manager. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you know if you believe in me as well, right? And and then I'll believe
Hmm.
in you. It's like if you make me feel important, I'll be important.
Yeah, it's about that mutuality. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, John, thank you so much. There has been so many valuable insights and advice and just knowledge that you've shared in this episode. So I want to really say thank you for helping us to see the method behind the magic and to understand that it takes a lot more than pixie dust to create that kind of culture. So thank you so much for your time
You're
here
welcome.
today. We really do
It's
appreciate it.
it's more than a magic wand there, as you know, right? Right?
There
It's
it
more
is.
than the magic wand.
And I will say, I pride myself on knowing a ton of Disney trivia, and fun facts and secrets. But today, I can say, or after this conversation, I can honestly say that I know so much more about trivia and knowledge and insights about the back end, what's behind the curtain, especially after reading your book. Like I had no idea about traditions training, which I think is incredible. So, thank you for everything that you've allowed me to learn from you today.
You're welcome. It's my way of giving back to you. You do a great job. I love your the purpose behind your podcast. I think it's so valuable to those that are listening. There's all kinds of little nuggets that you provide, your speakers provide, your guests provide, and learning is ongoing, right? We don't go to school once in
Yes,
our life; we go to school the rest of our life, and
every
and
day.
and and so we need to be sponges and learn and grow, and things that we learn today may not have been valuable to us back then. How many times have we picked up a book and read the book and go, "It was okay," and then I read the book again and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is gold," because I
Right.
wasn't there
Right.
at that particular time and
Yes.
place. Or maybe it's I have a client of mine that like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what they need," right? And
Mm,
so the universe is incredible. And
is
so be a
magical in that
sponge,
way.
learn as much as you can, learn from the many different ways you can. And I guarantee you, I know your podcast is one way of getting some valuable information and then have opportunities to go out there and apply it, try it, right? Nothing happens unless you try.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that. For our listeners, we've talked about the vision of a magical culture today, but a vision isn't enough. You really need the blueprints behind it. So, next week, we are moving from the magic to the architecture. I'm bringing back Natalie Jackson from last season to show us how to take the culture that John described today and map it into a concrete employee journey from the first job post to the final exit interview. And we're going to learn in that conversation why your brand promise might be broken on the inside and exactly how to fix it. So thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, follow to help us to continue to reach people with our message and help to inspire and catalyze this collective transformation that we're all craving. I'm Clarence Moore. I'm your host, and this is Aligned, Engaged, Fulfilled.